Hey guys, it's Vince. Today in this video we're going to be discussing spotting the knot. It seems that more and more every day my time is really being delegated more towards support rather than the actual building. And if I'm not building, of course, I'm not profiting. So what I have to do is try to extrapolate my knowledge to you to empower you guys to at least ask yourself, if not anything, is he correct? Let me research that. On whatever videos, whatever knowledge you see online, please guys do your due diligence. I'm doing this video and I'll probably be doing follow-up videos like this to educate you guys as much as possible and make you as profitable as possible as well, because I know a lot of my clients are out there to try to profit and make money for their business. That being said, I want to just disclose one other comment before I get started, and that is that whatever I discuss today is for your own benefit. And when I say that, I know that most of you know that, but some of you guys think that when I discuss other people's videos, I'm belittling or bullying and I'm highlighting their video in a negative format. What I'm really trying to do is highlight what not to do. I'm not bullying the end user. I don't know their knowledge base. I don't know these people. But by the same token, if they are creating a polluted atmosphere for education in this field, it should be highlighted because, again, it always falls back on guys like myself who are trying to do right by the industry and teach you guys the right way to do things, in the sense that at least you know what you're looking at can be confirmed by doing due diligence online through research. And that's really what I'm trying to do. So now I'm going to jump right in. And we're going to discuss right here. Again, I'll just let you guys know this video is not going to be short. It is going to be covering some topics that I'm noticing more and more. This one's covering a CNC 6040. It's called Improvements, Fixes, and Upgrades. This individual goes through, excuse me, and basically wants to discuss what upgrades he's done to his gantry on his 6040 CNC chassis from China to make it more rigid in his eyes. Now guys, I'm going to tell you right now, a 6040 CNC is an excellent chassis to begin with. As far as making the chassis more rigid, I don't really see it necessary to do that. Now some individuals feel they want to turn a $1,000 machine into a $100,000 Haas mill. If that's what you decide to do, that's totally up to you. However, it's really interesting when you watch this video. As you go through, I'm just going to highlight certain points in the video. Here he's actually discussing what he feels is off on the mill.
If I just put my hand at the top, you can see it. It actually, moves.
Okay, guys, he's discussing, and a lot of guys always go through this. They'll discuss, if I put my hand on my spindle, I can rock it back and forth, creating what looks like play. Okay? The bottom line is this: you are not machining from this end. You're machining from this end. And what you need to really keep in mind is, when your machine is running, when that spindle is running and engaging your substrate for cutting, what's actually happening is, if you're machining at the proper feed rate with the proper tooling, you're removing substrate at the proper level where the machine can keep up, and hence not putting any resistance on the actual spindle. The only time you have resistance like he's reflecting here, and of course it would be on this end, not the top end, would be if you're engaging the substrate and not removing enough material at one pass, and what would end up happening is you'd be putting undue stress on the spindle, which would then in turn put resistance on it, which would again put you out of accuracy as far as your tramming. So what he's reflecting here, that doesn't really reflect that the chassis is not rigid. I know a lot of guys go through and say, well, if it flexes at all, it's not rigid. Well, in actuality, okay, it should be rigid to the sense that whatever substrate you're engraving or cutting is going to actually have enough tension and torque to hold that accuracy after you engage with the proper feed rate and proper tooling. I really want you to think about what I just said, okay? If you're noticing that your chassis is made, again, you've got, I believe the 6040, or at least it was, is about 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch aluminum plates for the gantry. Okay, the rigidness of this chassis is never something to question. I have multiple clients using 3 kilowatt spindles on this chassis and are fine with it. Okay, as far as it being rigid and what it's able to handle. Now, what the big question here is the end user. Do they understand the concept of what they're doing when they're machining? Okay, you can see here he has a piece of wood. I don't know what kind of substrate this is, what wood it is, but we have a piece of wood here. Anybody will tell you, unless he's trammed this piece of wood, which I can tell the finish on it is reflecting, either he stained it himself, which I highly doubt, or he just cut this to use as a flat surface. We don't know how flat it is, because wood typically is inherently unstable as far as being true all the way across the platform. And again, there's a couple things we're missing here as far as knowing, of course, the end user's knowledge in even the tramming capability. But what you see here, and this is where I really become really afraid, is when I see that we've got 50 thumb ups on his video, and yet that means that people are agreeing with what they're seeing. And yet, if you watch the whole video, and again, I'm just summarizing what's going on here, he actually adds a piece of substrate. I'm just trying to see if I can find that. He adds a piece of aluminum substrate in the back of his machine. Where'd it go? See if we can find. There we go. He adds a piece of substrate in the back of his machine, and he thinks this substrate is going to make this more rigid. And what's really interesting is that when he comes over here to test the run out again, it's doing the exact same thing. I'm going to hit play.
0.009 just by putting my hand at the top. You know, with a little pressure, not a lot. And now if I try to push it towards the back, it's around the same. It's 0.01, you know, towards.
Yeah. So he's showing you it's about the same. So he did all that extra work, and he did absolutely nothing to really acquire a more precise spindle or more precise tramming. What you guys really need to do is think about what that machine is doing. I know a lot of you always want to get a system and make mods immediately. What I always recommend, first of all, it costs you more money that way. I would buy a system that's tried and true. The CNC 6040 chassis, the Chinese chassis, the 3020s, the 6090s, those are all chassis that are tried and true as far as what they're made out of. And what I mean to say is, as far as rigidity goes, that's not usually the area that you should be looking at. If you wanted to look at something to replace, I would say if you absolutely wanted to start with something that you may see a difference with over longevity, it would be bearings. It would be lead screws, as far as testing the lead screws for trueness if you absolutely must. I can tell you I've retrofitted at least 300 of these systems alone, and I have never ever found anything other than typically maybe a drilled hole that was slightly off, slightly open, maybe something wasn't tapped perfectly. But other than that, these systems are inherently true. And you can see that if you go on YouTube and you look at what these machines are capable of, and I'm about to show you an example at the end of this video of what they're capable of in the right hands. Because again, when we're talking about spotting the knot, I want you guys to see what's wrong, but I also want you to see end users who understand what they're dealing with. Okay, this right here, when you guys are not, rocking your spindle back and forth, please think about what you're really doing. And that's really what I want you to do. If your end mill is placed at the bottom of the chassis, once again, rocking it back and forth from the top is not teaching you anything. Again, you're not loading the end mill at the bottom. You're not removing substrate as the chassis is moving, which would remove any pressure put on this spindle. Think about it. If you're removing substrate at the proper speed, which is all you're doing when you're cutting, is removing substrate with the end mill and the proper feed rate and RPM, you will not have excess force put on this spindle. The only time you break an end mill, and think in terms of that, if you're breaking an end mill, it's due to the fact that you're creating excessive force on that end mill because your feed rate and RPM is not set accurately enough to where you're engaging the end mill at a much higher rate, which physics tells us if you keep putting pressure on something faster than it can remove material, it's going to do one of two things. Typically, if the RPM is set too low, it'll bog down, and then it will just snap eventually the end mill. Okay? Think about that. Because that's something, again, that I cannot emphasize enough. When it comes to machining, guys, it's an art. It's something that you play with. It's not something that you're going to sit there and learn overnight. It's something that you're going to have to research yourself through trial and error on substrates, find the right sweet spot of end mills. Now, you can learn a lot from other end users, and again, I'm trying to bring you guys the end users who I recommend learning from, because again, they're already doing the process, they're already making money, they understand machining, and I'm trying to bring you guys to light on people who I would say are good examples of what to watch. This again is not. Okay, and I hope he really does figure out that he doesn't have to, try to make the chassis more rigid. If anything, it would be, figuring out if this system is actually trammed correctly. Because with him putting pressure, or you guys putting pressure at the top of your spindle, you're going to consistently be throwing out of whack your gantry. Okay, doing it like that where he says, oh, I'm not putting too much pressure, but I'm putting my hand on it, it will eventually throw her out of whack, and you will require retramming the system. Okay, they're not super sensitive, but over duration, it will create a variance, and that variance will be translated to your surface if you're doing any surfacing, so it should be considered. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on to another video. Now this is covering more of the electronics part, which again, this is my expertise. This is what I deal with every day. And this is my buddy Jason. Jason's bought a system from me. This is a revision 1 chassis from me. And you can see his old chassis from CNC. This is the typical Chinese chassis that's now being offered. And what I want to do is cover some things real quick as far as no-nos. One of the things the Chinese like to do, and I've noticed this recently, more recently, is they're trying to encompass installing everything in one enclosure. Okay, guys, you never want to put a VFD inside your enclosure. When I say a VFD, I mean the actual power conversion unit. Okay, the variable frequency drive generates a lot of amperage. Okay, the Chinese are inherently known for not grounding and shielding things properly. In their country, they have different standards on certain projects, and again, their quality control, we've covered in numerous videos. I mean, I've said this numerous times. It's just not there. Saying that, you're going to see Jason take the lid off this enclosure, and now we can look at this controller at a point and a level that I can discuss where there are so many red flags here. It's frightening. First of all, you've got one coolant fan here, which is fine. We don't know the CFM rating, so heat is definitely more of an issue with this unit because you have the power of the VFD, which is drawing 220 under normal circumstances. Maybe in this circumstance, they might be switching over to the 110 version, which again is something that the Chinese now has encompassed. Guys, if you're going to buy a VFD, I recommend staying with the 220. It's much more efficient. The 110 units are iffy, and I'm just making that recommendation. I know it's easier because in our homes, that's typically what we see in the U.S., but if you want my honest opinion, the UK and Europe has had it right from the beginning. 220 is more efficient, and if anything, when you're dealing with equipment like this, you really would want to go with a 220 rated spindle and VFD. That being said, we have to look here, even though it has a fan, at how much heat we're generating. Okay, now each of these drives, typically the Chinese, you can see this says 110 on the power supply, but typically the Chinese are never using a 48 volt power supply to drive their system. They're using 24 volts is on usually the standard, so this system will have half the speed of a G540 just because the voltage is so low. That being said, you can see here all your cables. Now they do really decent job of wire maintenance. I mean, as far as tying everything, making it look organized, you can't knock them for that. What you can knock them for is nothing is shielded. Okay, none of these cables are shielded. When you have this much copper and this much wiring going in and out, remember guys, you're sending and receiving signals. That's what your system does. Stepper drivers send and receive signals. Those pulse and step signals, once they go to your drive, will go from your drives to your steppers. That's what makes them move. If any of these wires are confined in a space like this, they begin talking to each other when they're not shielded. There's no drains here. There's no shielding. There's nothing. You can even see here, I believe this is a power plug or something else. You can see where the casing is cut, and there is absolutely no shield present on this wire. Now, what makes this even more frightening is now they've got a VFD installed in here, and the VFD generates the most EMI, and they're confining it to this enclosure, which means on top of you not having shielded cables on your actual communication on the drives itself, plus probably the breakout board, I'm assuming that's what that is, you're going to have a multitude of potential problems. Okay, and why risk it? I tell you guys all the time, spot the knot. This is spotting the knot. This is not something you want to mess around with. It will cost you more time and more money. And it's really interesting because Jason replaced his system, and mainly because of that, it was just inconsistent. And that's what you guys will find. It may be one drive gives you problems, two drives, but overall, these are what to look for. If you see a system, and I don't care if it's from China, I don't care who it's from, if you see a system and it looks like this, you are going to find you're getting burned. It will definitely cause you problems somewhere down the road. Now, will it be right away? No, it's not necessarily right away. I will honestly tell you, I've had clients that have gotten these boxes and have had good luck. I mean, every now and then you win the lottery, but more times than not, and this is typically what happens, guys will think they have a stable box. It cuts a couple projects good. They switch over to a high-end substrate. They have potential to make better money going to aluminum, carbon fiber. I've had guys cut Kevlar, whatever it may be. And all of a sudden, they switch over to the high-end substrate, and the drives start acting wonky. They miss steps. Something, is amiss. Something just stops. And now they've destroyed that substrate, or at least a majority of it. And when you're dealing with high-end costly substrates, guys, or you're dealing with a business, that is catastrophic. It will put you in a loony bin. Mentally it puts you in a loony bin, and financially it puts you in a poorhouse. Time is money. Anyone running a business will tell you that. If you want to be efficient, think about this. Okay, I know the price is alluring. I know that when you see these prices and you see $1,000 and they're selling these systems, again, you really got to know what you're looking at and ask the questions, guys. You can contact China. Most of the vendors are honest. If you ask them, hey, are you using shielded cables and everything? Can you send me pictures? Can you show me pictures of where a drain is run and grounded? Okay, not just using shielded cables, but actually running the drain wires from the shield, which is actually a diffuser for any EMI that's present. That's what you want to do. Looking at this stuff is not only going to save you time, it's going to save you money. And that's why I say I'm doing these videos to show you that. Once again, Jason's an awesome guy. Again, excellent at manufacturing. He's got his own business. And seeing this, it's something I see and deal with every day. And again, it looks, to the naked eye, it looks clean. It looks okay. But when you think about what you're actually doing in electrical terms, and what we know by EMI, and what we know by power consumption, when we're dealing with a VFD, and again, a 110 volt VFD is going to draw virtually twice the amps of a 220 because it's less efficient, you're going to have even more EMI present in this enclosure, which then is confound because you're going to put the case on it, and you have all this heat here. I wonder what this enclosure actually temperature-wise got to. After a couple hours, when you have this VFD here, you have the fan extracting heat from the power supply, and then you have the other fan here. Is this fan strong enough to reduce the heat level of all this ambient heat surrounding these drives? That's what you guys really got to look at. Thermal dynamics come into play with controllers, shielding comes into play, and the electrical side of it is not something of just saying, hey, I hooked it up and it's done. Okay? If you look back in the 90s, and I bring this up all the time, when computers came out, they came out, and you could buy kits to build a computer, and most guys that were somewhat relative to hardware and understood what actual components went inside a computer, they could assemble the computer no problem. Where the problem lied is when they went to install software in a computer and there was a glitch. Now the hardware is assembled, but how do I do this? I don't know what to do. I purchased this. I thought I knew what I was doing. Now I got to go find support. That's what happens with CNC. You're in that realm where, yeah, I can wire a drive. I can follow a wiring diagram, but can I support it? Can I go back and ask, do I speak Mandarin? Do I trust this seller enough that I can rely on them to build something that's going to make me profitable consistently? Ask yourself those questions. Once you ask yourself those questions and ask them questions, see how the responses are. Like I always tell my clients, you're spending a lot of money. I know what you're going to do. I'm there already. I've done it. I've done it for years. I've supported full-scale companies, and I can tell you right now, when you're dealing with a Fortune 500, it's at a different level because to them, $1,000, that's a drop in the bucket. Oh, we need to replace this? Fine. We need an end mill that's, $150, so be it. For a guy who's just starting out, that's massive. So please, if anything, research what I'm saying. You know, I'm doing these videos to save you money. I'm telling you right now, it will save you money and save you time the more research you do, and I hope you found my video to do that. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the next video, because again, we're spotting the knots. Here's a video that is absolutely horrific. I seen this video, and again, this individual purchased a used system, and one of the pictures he had is of the 4th rotary axis. Now, guys, this is this is a blatant example. If you find rust on any of your parts like this that go to this chassis, you can see the spindle here has rust all over it. That is a definitive sign of when you're purchasing used equipment to stay away. And I cannot emphasize that enough. Now, if, however, and I get this question all the time, I can buy a used piece of equipment and, it looks rough, but I can refurbish it. If you feel that confident that you are able to do that, then so be it. You're going to do what you want to do anyways. It's your money. But I'm telling you now, okay, like a car, like a house. No, better yet, think of a house. You'll see a house, and I hear these guys, I flip houses all the time. Any house flipper that'll tell you that the houses that look like they just need a coat of paint until they're home inspected, and then they find everything else that's wrong with it, you could be thousands in the hole. Okay, and these machines, it's the same thing. This is a smaller machine. It looks like I believe it's a 60/40 in the video. Oh yeah, it is 60/40 in the video. And honestly, even though it's a cheaper machine, don't let yourselves, don't get to the point where you get penny wise and dollar foolish. Okay, and what I mean to say is, there's guys that'll look at this and be like, I can remove the rust, I can buy the bearings, I can do all this, and then they don't value their time at doing this. If you're working a full-time job and you're trying to get another business going and hopefully trying to get something, motivated to where you got the machine up and running, that could be weeks, guys, of you working on this, which is fine if you accept that. Most guys don't. I've had clients tell me, matter of fact, recently I just had a client tell me, I wish I would have had you build my controller. He bought a kit for me. He said, I wish I would have had you build it, only because my time. Think of your time. Think of, are you willing to commit, if you're going to refurbish a project like this, and a lot of you are super capable, more capable than me even. As far as I deal with this every day, but I've dealt with guys that are brilliant with machining and brilliant with, going back and really, really covering all the details. But when you factor in their time, most of them are so worthy of looking at, how much time do I have to invest to get my machine at a point where it makes sense. They won't do it. They won't do it. They'll measure it and say, if it's going to cost me, 80 hours to get this machine up and running, 80 to 90 hours, I'm working full time, I'm worth well more than $5 an hour, So think about that, On top of that, there are parts in this video where he actually goes through, and I'm trying to see if I can find it. Once again, looking at a controller, he purchased this. He thinks he did a great deal because, again, he bought it used. I hear this all the time. And I'm trying to see if I can find, here we go. He went inside the controller. Let's see if we can get in here.
Hey, what's up? James here. And if you give me 60 seconds, I'm going to show you how you can start crushing it.
Real quick. Please forgive me for that.
So take a look inside the control box.
Okay, we're back in the control box again. And you can see it's basically a wire ribbon mess of crap. Something else I want to point out.
I can start limiting or
really
this
want to
thing
look
on
at.
So
I'm just going to
now see that presents another challenge because you have the control box down here where everything would.
If you look at his screws on this control box and you see rust on these screws, guys, I'm telling you now, be very, very careful. Because if that machine, again, we already saw the rust on those parts. I have guys that will send me pictures of equipment and say, what do you recommend? What do you think I can do with this? And they'll have screws that are just rusted to the actual chassis itself, the actual base. Guys, I'm telling you now, 9 out of 10 times, it's not like bondoing a car and patching everything up. Usually those type of systems, to be fully reliable, and I mean reliable to the sense that you can start your business and be comfortable cutting the high-end materials that you'll be working with, potentially, you really want to rethink if the investment is worth it. Okay, aside from the time, like I said, the investment, because time and money are virtually the same. So as I play this, or actually I'll try to fast forward it. That's too much.
Or homing this thing out on its own. A challenge because you. Let's see. I'm pretty sure I still have the screws off. Let's see if I can get in here.
So to take a look inside the control
Here we go. I'm trying
box.
to get it so it's stable.
You'll have a power supply, 24 volt. If you buy
see, once again, nothing is shielded.
Well,
Drives, power
most of the ones that I saw
You've
on
got
eBay
all of this going on
still
in
used
here,
a 220 power supply.
nothing
so
is shielded,
if
guys.
you
This is
aren't
a
in a
mess.
place where you
This is a mess. It's been in an environment that we already know, confirmed by the residual rust on it, that is not applicable to this type of equipment. And I'm telling you now, please be careful of this stuff. I know you want to save money. Everybody wants to save money, but realistically, I mean, if you take, and I get Entrepreneur Magazine, and I read it a lot. I mean, it's just something I do. It's something I always have done. I'm an old school guy. I like magazines. But looking at it, I always find it interesting. I was reading an interesting article about franchises that are you're able to start with, like, and the minimum franchise was between $20,000 and $50,000. Anyone can buy one of these machines new and do a full system for between $3,000 to $5,000, and that's not cutting corners. That's doing it right. So when I see stuff like this where a guy is like adamant about getting a machine running, if you just want movement, and like I said, you really don't care about making money, you just want movement, even then, be careful. Okay, because I'm telling you now, once you start having problems with these machines, and if anyone's out there, and I know there's many of you are, that have a machine and are watching this, you can confirm what I'm saying. Until you've had a problem with the system, you want to pull your hair out, especially because there's no troubleshooting guide to actually going through and figuring it out. There's no user's manual. You have to figure it out. And that's why I'm telling you guys, really, really look at systems like this. Systems that are, just thrown together, and where, again, you can see here, even on the power supply, you're looking at rust. I mean, these are just telltale red flags all over the place. Be very, very careful. If we go through the rest of the video, I mean, it's really kind of useless because, again, you can see exactly, I'm just trying to see if there's anything of knowledge there. Not really. The next one, and this is something that I see tons of, I see guys, or I should say even, this is China, believe it or not, China's CNC zone, and this individual is telling you, let's see if we can get this out of here, to cool the drill bit with an air gun to prevent it from breaking off because he's drilling in a piece of steel. And he's doing this with a 6040 and a 2200 kilowatt spindle. Guys, if you are doing metal machining at all, your system should have a coolant system. Okay? Now, as far as using air to cool an end mill, that is ridiculous. Okay? Air is not nearly as conductive of heat. Once again, learning thermodynamics, you can research this. Water is much better at conduction of heat and removing heat on an end mill, which will get, extremely hot, in excess of 500 degrees if you let it. I mean, again, most of you guys have seen the videos where the bit is actually smoking. In this video, I'll just play it for a split second because it's loud. Let's see if it comes up. Now, once again, he's not peck drilling. He's simply doing a straight-up drill. And without lubricant, your guy's end mill will last a fraction of the normal time. Okay? Anybody can do aluminum machining if they understand it. You can do aluminum machining with Dremel tools. I've seen it done on the Stepcraft machines all the time. It's a question of your feed rate. It's a question of coolant. Everybody should have coolant present. And again, being clean. When you're using an air gun like this, commonality, as far as common sense goes, you're naturally blowing all the scarf everywhere. So that's something you guys really, really want to look at. And again, determine what you're looking at with the point of, is this the best practice for this application? I mean, research it to that level. Look at 5 different videos. Are they all doing the same thing? Because I can tell you right now, 98% of the videos you'll find on YouTube, one guy will do things one way. The next video you watch, it's done another way. The next video you watch is done another way. And 9 out of 10 times, you're more convoluted watching multiple videos than you are trying to find a legit answer. The easiest way to do that, I feel, is to go and, like I said, if you have the availability, if you have the time, without just looking at videos. You could always go to your local machine shop and see, you know, how they actually do things. 9 out of 10 of them, when they have high-end equipment, and again, the process is the same. Their equipment's larger than yours. That's about it. If you watch what they're doing, if they're a pro shop, they're typically going to want longevity out of their equipment. They're going to want to do everything to the best of their ability to make everything last, because time is money, parts are money. They're not going to do things like this. This is half-assed. This is not recommended. You know, you definitely want a mist cooling system or a flood cooling system. I personally like flood cooling because water volume definitely makes up the plethora. Some guys like mist. And mist cooling, the one thing a lot of guys don't think of is the fact that it will make you're actually breathing that, especially if you're in a confined area of your shop over duration. If you're machining a long project, that will get in the air. And again, if the particulates are small enough, it's like paint, guys. Think of paint. You're not going to sit there and huff a paint can. I mean, it's the same principle. So really look at, again, best practice. This is definitely, when I see stuff like this, and again, you know, China manufactures all the time. I'm shocked this is coming from China, but hey, I think they're just trying to prove a point, but I just wanted to point out what you guys need to pay attention to and really look at as far as not doing. This is definitely not best practice. Now, as far as spotting some knots, there's a guy I want to talk about who, believe it or not, is actually relatively local to me. His name is James. And James and I have been really working together on some projects. And I can tell you right now, I want you to introduce you guys to his channel because he is a very, very meticulous machinist. He has a lot of talent. He understands Fusion 360. He's got an extensive background in machining, has an extensive background in profiting. He's actually run $1 million company before. And I can tell you, he's a really great guy, super as far as details. And he actually put together a video, and this is a video you guys can use yourself to educate yourself on how to make money with CNC, because I discuss how easy it is to profit with CNC. James went through, and he loves his Fusion 360, and he went through and he took a car part from a picture and reverse engineered what he's seen in the picture to an actual logo. And in this video, it shows that. I'm going to put the link on the video in the description so you guys can check this stuff all out. See if I can load it. Let's see what we got.
This is the gentleman's engine.
So the client wanted to have this emblem on his engine remade. So James took it, and if you watch the video, you're going to see him reverse engineer this into vectors. He's taken picture to vectorization. I discuss this all the time with my clients about how easy it is to make money. Now he took that, he took the text, and he did a reverse engineering through picture to vectorization, and now he's going through and he's going to create the part. And again, I'm just going through and showing you quickly. You guys can watch this video yourself. I hope you do, because James is a great guy, and again, his processes are elite. When I say that, I would say very, very close to what you would find at a typical Fortune 500 as far as his sequencing. So really, really pay attention. If you want to learn, if you want to ask questions, James is open for that. I've already spoken to him. And again, you can see here how he went through. He's machined out the actual emblem. And as he comes through here, and again, I'm just going to kind of summarize this. And once again, I really hope you watch this whole video. You can see he's actually doing a simulation. We'll play that real quick. A lot of you guys ask me what a simulation is. You can see that it's running a simulation to see how all the machining is done. When you're using Pro CAD CAM software, that's what you want to have. You want to have a simulator that will run the program to see how accurate it is. Now, guys, when you're looking at Vectric and hobby grade software where it's primarily woodworking, their simulator is not going to be as advanced as what you'd see with Fusion, BobCAD, SolidWorks. There's a reason there's a reason that software is so much more money, is because, again, it's pro-level software. If you're looking at doing work like this and making real money, and why I say making real money is not that you can't make money in woodworking, but when you do the sequential time breakdown of what it took him to do this and finish the product, and actually, here you go. I'll show you as we go through. He did an inlay of black paint. He then polished the unit.
All, it was a great job. I hope I was able to.
There you go. So right there is the finished product. These on eBay go for anywhere between, oh God, I've seen them up to $150 a set, depending upon what they need done. Now this was a custom project done for one of his clients. Again, God only knows what he made, but I can tell you right now that he has this made already, he could add this, you could add this to your eBay store, whatever, an Etsy store, whatever you decide to do, or both stores. And basically market it, and you guys are funding a product. As far as the actual aluminum, again, I think that's 1/4 inch that he used. I would have to watch the video again to see if he discusses the dimensions. But this is not fancy. This is not anything but, just engraving. And he created a beautiful, beautiful emblem. And this is stuff that you guys can do with this equipment. I mean, buying products anymore is something of the past. With this equipment, if you understand what you're doing, it's virtually too easy to make money. I mean, I can tell you right now, depending upon what you're willing to accept for something, and that's really what it is. There's a lot of guys that have accessibility to aluminum scrap, and they can buy it for pennies on the dollar. You could do this yourself, let the machine do the work, you do the finishing work, knock out 10 emblems, sell them at 15, 20 bucks a pop if you really want to move them super quick, and you'll make a killing. I mean, by far faster than you'll do, working 9 to 5. I mean, again, when you're trading time for money, it's you want to have that ratio back on you as far as what you're getting paid for the product quality. Once you see a product like this, again, this guy doesn't know where it came from. He sees it, he sees professional work, and he loves the fact that it's customized. You guys have that ability. So that's why I say when you're buying your software, when you're buying your machine, really, really pay attention to what you're doing. Really pay attention to the fact that this is what is capable on your machine. And when I say that, I say your machine because James, believe it or not, is using a 3020 CNC from China chassis to make these parts, guys. A 3020 is a tiny chassis. It's tiny. So it does not dictate that you must have a 4x8 or a 5x10 system to do it. It's the know-how. If he's detailed enough, if he's meticulous enough, if he's willing to put the time in and commit to learning the software, then there's virtually nothing you can't do. And that's what I'm showing you. And again, to confirm what I'm saying, if you come over to his channel, Innovative CNC, he's doing a swap out, just so you guys know, with a G540. I actually, like I said, we're working together, and I gave him a G540 and a 48 volt, 12.5 amp power supply in my cables to do a retrofit on this machine, because what you guys just saw done was, believe it or not, done with a TB560 board. If you look here at this video, which is probably the most impressive video, I've put it in another one of my previous videos. And again, I cannot emphasize this enough, guys. I really hope all of you take the time to watch this
Bottom
video.
there is really good.
James goes through the entire machining process of showing you his machine, showing you his mist coolant. He's using a 1.25 horse Makita wood router, guys, a wood router, and he's getting this accuracy with this mill. Now, I can tell you right now, 4/10,000ths of an inch accuracy with this mill. Okay, so when I think of guys talking about rigidity and talking about, what they can't machine and what they can't, it's amazing what you can do. And he does all his tolerance checks. This video is worth you guys watching over and over. And again, if you do have questions, James and I will be working together, because James, again, as far as I'm concerned, he's at a level where I know his knowledge is so beneficial to so many of you, whether you have a business, whether you're looking at, expanding your business and have questions on parts, because I get questions about that all the time. Can you do a drawing? Can you help me with this? Everybody's using different CAD CAM, but I want to start a community where I feel that the right information is there, and there's a lot of end users out there that are really intelligent and really looking to do things right, but they're trying to be led by the correct videos. And again, James's channel is small, but if you watch the videos that he's made, it's really impressive. His machining videos are some of the best I've ever seen, including in full scale. So again, super great guy, and again, I recommend you guys checking it out. And I hope this video has at least saved one of you some time and money. And in the end, whether you buy from me, whether you check out my store, again, I'm Vince over at eDealers Direct Automation. It's eDealers Direct on eBay is the store. They cut off the automation. You can email me storm, STORM 2313 at gmail.com. I will get back to you as soon as possible. Lately, I've been extremely busy. We're in peak season mode, so I'll get back to you as soon as I can. But overall, I want you guys to be empowered. I want you guys to be profitable. And there's enough scams out there with business as far as sell this, drop ship that, do this, do that. We have the ability now to create our own products at will, whether it be out of aluminum, whether it be out of wood, whether it be out of carbon fiber, whatever substrate you virtually can come up with, steel. I've dealt with it all. If it's something that you want to create with this equipment, if you're willing to take the time, there's almost nothing I can't think you can't make. I mean, at least to the degree, I'll say this, at least to the point that you can offset the price enough that profiting is almost inevitable. That is why China is where it is. That is why most of the countries that are dealing with manufacturing, highly Germany, they're another big manufacturing country. That's why they are where they are. If you sell direct, and that's what you're becoming, the direct manufacturer, you have no overhead. There's no way you can't profit. And again, watching his videos of a 30-20, it's not about machine size. It's not about really anything. He's using all the same tools. He buys everything from Harbor Freight, which, most of you guys, I've shopped there numerous times. A lot of my tools are from Harbor Freight, and I recommend them highly. It just depends on what you're doing. And honestly, and that's what I really love, is that we're not seeing Matoyo, we're not seeing Starrett, we're not seeing, the names in the industry that you would conventionally think, but you can't deny the finished product. And that's really what it is. You give people service, you give people a great product, and you guys will profit. So again, I thank you all for your support. You've been wonderful. I hope this video has helped. If you do need anything, again, you've got my contact information. You let me know, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Take care.